loud. And so recording has started, and then I am going to change the share screen options to okay, I screwed something up. I'm having a moment of brain fade here. So I should click on, okay, advanced sharing options. All participants can share. Okay, it should be set, and I will now transfer host control to you.
Yep.
So you're the host now. So I'll have to drop off at probably 12:30ish or so, and get ready for my next meeting on electric vehicle charging options. So that's life in the big city for me.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
Sounds really interesting.
Are you recovered from climbing up and down iron ladders yesterday?
I'm fine. Tim Orr and I went up in the Boulder County Courthouse to take a look at their clock system up there and possible enhancement of it. It's a modified little Seth Thomas time only clock. Kind of interesting, kind of fun. So
yeah, I don't know whether you had a chance to look at that document, but the one that's handwritten. But it's kind of interesting that we had a 1 second, a full second pendulum. So it's only about the pendulum, if we could ever find it, would only be about, a meter or so long, 39 or thereabouts,
Yeah, I don't know if they would still have that, but that could be a question for Dave Cooper, what he encountered 20 years ago when he worked on it. So
yeah.
Anywho, what else was I going to? Yeah, having brain fade, kind of thinking about various things, but I can see if I can do a screen share of that. Share screen. Basic AirPlay share. Slowly connecting.
Well, we've got a blank screen, but it does say that you started screen sharing.
Yeah, I've got clicked on the there we go.
There we are. Yes.
So you can okay, well that's incredibly slow network. So it's been modified with this crazy little release. You see some electromagnets on the left that go to an arm, and then there's a fly up there, and they have removed the escape wheel and the pendulum, and they have this fly and a little electronic timer that releases this every 30 seconds, and that has replaced the kind of the escapement, the traditional escapements. And then there's an electric wind, and that keeps it. That's a weird panoramic. And there's Tim looking at the clock. That's the west clock face on the courthouse. but it's got a standard clock tower bevel gear drive with 4 arms coming off of it and such. So I will stop my screen share now. Send it back to you. So anyway, any new NAWCC news update us on while we're waiting for more
Well, you know,
participants?
we're still planning on going ahead with the meeting in Hampton, Virginia, July 15 through the 18th. You know, things are looking good for that. The restrictions on related to COVID keep lessening and lessening all the time. So we're hoping that meeting will go well. There are at least 14 lectures scheduled from some pretty high-powered folks, and so there's going to be lots of educational opportunities, and then of course a exhibit on marine timekeeping. Be a lot of chronometers and whatnot in that, and then, you know, we have high hopes for the crafts contest. We sort of figure everybody's been holed up in their homes for the past year, so they should have had plenty of opportunity to practice their crafts. You know? So
you would think I thought I would get an awful lot done, but I haven't. Yeah, everything else seems to have gotten in the way, and
yeah, I know.
But
Same
such
here.
is life.
Yeah.
So James, do you go to any of the nationals? Would you go to this one?
I have gone to many of them. I probably will not go to this one.
Yeah, it's probably how far of a flight or drive is it from Chicago area where you're at?
Out to Virginia?
Yeah,
It's a long way.
it's a long way. Okay, so yeah, I'm probably similar to Colorado, a 3 or 4 hour flight maybe. So,
but I'm interested in the Civil War as well as watches and clocks. So there's a lot of history out there. So it's a good location.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I was able to get a, believe it or not, a non-stop flight from Denver to Norfolk.
Oh, nice.
So,
did you get in before the price increases?
you know, I don't know. You know, I mean, one of the things that we've heard is that the thing that is really insane, apparently, is rental cars.
Oh, yes. Yes.
They're just
say,
completely out of sight in terms of, so everybody's going to be on Uber, I fear.
Yeah. Yeah, all the companies sold off their cars during COVID lockdowns, and now they can't get any more. Well, they're getting them low.
Yeah. So.
It's actually a pretty good strategy for them in some ways, and I'm not sure that they had intended to do it, but this confluence of inability to get new cars because of chip shortages and supply chain disruptions means that the existing fleets that all the rental car agencies own have great resale value, and by limiting their fleets they can increase the rates of their cars and probably have the same level of profitability without as much labor force to clean the cars and maintain them. So
God knows we wouldn't want to have any thoughts in our minds about customer service, would we?
Nothing like that. So,
and of course, it's resulted in the hotel being very inexpensive. I think I got my room at like $127 a night, which is in a hotel that's all suites, and you know. It's a fairly nice property.
That's good.
Is it the host hotel
that
you're staying at? Yeah, that's nice because it's attached to the convention center as well, right?
Well, it's not exactly. There is a covered walkway in between the two. It's outdoors, but it's covered. So,
is it a long walkway, like quarter mile or something?
City block, I'd say. City block, roughly.
Okay. So it's not like you're going to be carrying a 50-pound box of clock weights easily. You're going to need a two-wheeler to do that.
Right. Well, and that's absolutely the case. Plus, I'm not sure, because I'm not going to exhibit anything or sell anything or anything like that. But I think you also have to, if you're using a two-wheeler, you've got to go around back of the convention center. They don't want you going. It's kind of like we had in Chattanooga. The people in Chattanooga would have a absolute fit if you tried to bring a two-wheeler through the front door. They just would go crazy. So not that I don't know whether they're worried about the carpet or just the, dragging down the neighborhood or what. That's hard to say.
Yeah. Well, I guess the trick is you fly there with a rolly bag, as most everybody does, and then you transfer everything in your rolly bag and hope that the wheels don't break on you somewheres on that block long walk. So,
Right.
Yeah. So
wanted to make a comment to Lucas in regards to our previous meeting on radium. Lucas had brought up this story that in some of these very deep research laboratories that are in deep mines to get them away from cosmic radiation, that researchers who spent weeks down there suffered from a general malaise and unwellness feeling, and they attribute it to the lack of radiation. And I kind of thought, well, that's sort of far-fetched. But then in Ken Rendell's presentation a week later for the Denver chapter on radium, he had found this article on radiation hormesis. And hormesis is basically exposing the body to something that in large doses is harmful, but in low doses might be beneficial. And so there's actually on the National Institute of Health or something, a complete page and a big write-up on radiation hormesis. And the US has had a policy that zero radiation is best, but European studies have shown that a bit of radiation seems to be helpful up to a certain point. And hormesis is basically the same thing as inoculation or immunization. You're subjecting your body to a slight bit of harmful substance to, make it accustomed to it or some. And if you exceed it beyond a certain limit, that's an inflection point. And there's a term that I don't remember for it. But anyway, Lucas was absolutely right in his story.
Yeah, and I remember hearing about it in like a YouTube video, and I didn't believe it at all at first, and I think it was on, or at least I didn't like say, oh, that's not true. I thought it was kind of like you. I thought it was kind of far-fetched, and I think it was on, this one Australian news channel who has some interesting stories sometimes. And then eventually I stumbled across, I think, a YouTube video from it was either BBC or one of the larger British broadcasters. I think it was BBC, where they were talking about it. And they mentioned it in passing. And I thought, if it's BBC, then there has to be some amount of truth to it. And the video is from around 2019, 2018. So it was relatively recent. And sure enough, yeah. And I remember it was a clever quote. I don't remember exactly what it was, but essentially, there is no such thing as poison. The only danger in anything is the dosage. Now, obviously, it's not beneficial to consume even small amounts of lead and mercury, but we end up doing that, and it is good for the body to be able to handle those amounts of various poisons. Even sugar or water or food can be dangerous in high doses. I hear a lot of people say too much of one good thing, but there really is no good things, only things that we can't eat too much of.
Right. you hear stories of people that go into electrolyte imbalance from over consuming water for a variety of reasons, and there have been fatalities from that.
Yeah. Or this one kid from Germany I heard, there's a YouTube channel called Chevy Emu who I really like, and they bought the family came over to America. They couldn't really speak English that well. It was either Germany or Belgium, and candy in bottles was relatively popular in whatever country you'd come from. So they went into a convenience store one time and they found some candy, which just so happened to be in a bottle. Of course, this was America and they couldn't really read English that well. So that candy turned out to be a gummy multivitamin. But this kid who was overweight would just eat handfuls of multivitamins all day. And he ended up, his organs ended up shutting down. And I think he managed to come back from it, but it seems like he was in a coma or something. I don't remember the exact story, but yeah, vitamins are good for you, but same thing, don't overdo it, huh?
Yeah, well, that's always a challenge when you're in a foreign country buying something in a store. A friend of mine talked about graduating from college, and he and his wife took a summer-long trip to Europe, and they had new clothes and everything. And the first time they tried washing their clothes, they bought what they thought was soap, but it was bleach. Oh. And they turned all of their clothes into a tie-dye kind of look, and that's what they had to live with for the rest of their graduation celebration vacation in Europe.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Finland, I went to go get, I was super sick, some European variant of the cold or something, which admittedly I probably brought to America, but I was, groggy, sore throat, blah blah blah, same old symptoms, and we went to go get like some cough drops, and the cashier said, this is a laxative, right? Oh. So I got off lucky with that one.
Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, and we also found that in like Italy, you can't just pull a bottle of Advil off the shelf. That's something you have to ask the pharmacist for. They keep it behind the counter because it's considered to be something that you need advice for from the pharmacist before they'll dispense it.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with ibuprofen in Britain. Pharmacist sort of gave me the third degree about it before finally deciding to sell it to me. So there's also stuff that is available here that isn't available there, and stuff that's available there that isn't available here, and there's all kinds of weirdnesses. It's kind of speaking of Lucas's point, I was traveling with some friends, and one of the friends had a severe case of constipation. And I had remembered that in this country, before I had abdominal surgery, one of the things they always want you to do is to clear yourself out, and I had been directed to buy magnesium citrate, which is a sort of a liquid, comes like in a pop bottle. And actually, the truth of the matter is it's carbonated and it tastes rather good. But when we asked for magnesium citrate in Britain, it was just like they'd never heard of it. Nobody knew about it. They didn't have it. It was just like completely unknown. So, who knows about these things.
Yeah.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, Tim. Hello. Hey, Tim. Hey, Lucas. How are you guys?
Good.
We're all good. So, well, we might as well get on subject here, which is chronographs. And I'm sure Sean has got something to show off, as well as Lucas. And we have Bruce Woodings, who is showing up when he gets connected. He's a new member, recently moved to Boulder from London, I believe.
Nice.
His audio is slow to connect. So well, I would say somebody ought to just start going off on chronographs, and I'll have to bail in 30 minutes here. So.
Oh, sorry to kind of interject here. Did I tell you guys that the whole pocket watch situation got resolved with Jason?
Oh, good. No, you never said anything what became of it, but you eventually were able to make contact with them and get your repeater back.
Yes. What happened is you sent me his email and I tried emailing him a few times, but we were able to take his email and we found like a few addresses which matched his profile and his location. And we sent out some, request documents. We want this watch back, or my dad's going to have to take legal action. And we sent those out to his address up in I think it was like Fort Collins or Greeley, I don't remember. And he wrote back. I gave him my phone number. Finally, we were able to, it took my dad calling him and saying, I'm going to press charges if you don't do this by Saturday. But he managed to get the watch to us in a little priority mail package. And I gave Julie back the watch, the part. I gave her, the case. I made sure all the papers were present and correct that came with the watch. I made sure everything was in its original condition. Nothing was broken. The second hand had fallen off. He said the second hand had fallen apart. It looked fine, but I didn't want to take any chances. I just decided to hand it back to her. She just wanted it back. She didn't care about it not working. So it's back with her and the whole thing is resolved. I apologized very profusely and she told me that she forgave me. So the whole thing is figured out. And I thank you, Tim, for providing me with his email because I was able to find him and get everything resolved.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. It's one of those learning experiences, especially when you're new to this stuff, when you find somebody who you think can really do a service for you, and then you don't get all the contact information, and you never see them again. With the story Lucas is telling us, we had a gentleman show up at one of our lunches with his daughter, and he's a watchmaker kind of guy out of Fort Collins, and Lucas had this challenging repeater project that he said, oh yeah, I can fix this. And so Lucas passed it on to him and then didn't get all the contact or lost the contact information. And then he never came back to another lunch. So, but I was able to sort of make some guesses as to who it might be and did some Facebook searching and found the guy. He had a fairly disturbing Facebook page, but I'm glad that it worked out. So anyway,
the motto is trust everybody but cut the cards.
So we've got a few more people showing up, but we do have a person only. There we go. Who's muted? It's Bruce Woodings, who's new to the Colorado Boulder area, and you're from London, and you're a clockmaker by training.
Well, I try to be anyway. I was obviously trained in England, so with the limited skills that I had. So,
well, the Denver chapter, which I had mentioned, they've had some workshop sessions on skills relating to clock repair, and they also have had some sessions on case restoration. So, you're probably as knowledgeable as anybody we have in this area in some of those subjects.
Well, I was fortunate to be able to go to the Epping Forest Horological club. It's a club, but they had a fully kitted out workshop. The lathes probably had at least 6 or 8 lathes that we could use. And we had a teacher that was quite gifted. So we basically worked on our own clocks. And whenever we got into trouble, he came over and showed us how to sort it out. We built gears, all sorts of things, fabricate screws, whatever you needed to be done. So anyway, I was fortunate to be able to be trained under their guidance. So
wonderful. That's great. What brings you to the U.S.?
But basically, I was in London for 15 years working over there, and but based out of Houston. I mean, I was in Houston for most of my adult life, but I had an assignment in London for 15 years. So we left Houston, went to London. Now we came back to Houston, but we're relocating to Boulder. So.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So anyway, this session is, on chronographs and timers and stopwatches and such. And I have handed meeting control over to Tim Orr because I have to bail out here for a different Zoom meeting fairly quickly, but I thought I would just go ahead and let the meeting free flow, and I won't step on anybody at this point, but go ahead.
I can start things off. I had a friend recently that sent me a link that he thought I might be interested in, and it was, here, I'll share my screen. The screen 2, it's on a website called Bring a Trailer, which is like a car, it's a used car, classic car kind of website. But this one was on, somebody was selling a collection of chronographs, timers, stopwatches, and things like that. And so he said, hey, I thought you might be interested in this. And it had all sorts of cool stuff in it. It had all these Hoyer dash timers and things like that. And
so we're seeing like building plans right now.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Did it not pull over my screen?
Well, it's your screen,
it's your screen, but it's not showing your slideshow. It's showing some chat session or architectural thing with people's faces and a porch design or something.
Weird. Okay, here.
We're showing your Slack channel.
Oh, nice.
How that goes. It's happened to me.
Screen. Okay. Screen 2. Share screen 2. Did that pull up the internet?
Same building plans.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Because it switched my screens. Okay, here we go. Let's do this. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
I do it? Okay.
Yep.
It did. I noticed this morning my monitors had reversed for some reason. So Bring a Trailer. It's just a classic car website, and then it had this collection of chronographs, timers, stopwatches, and things like that somebody was selling, and it had a number of these Hoyer dash timers on it, and it looked like this person had just kind of collected all these stopwatches over time. So there's Breitling, Hanhart, there's some Minerva ones, and you can go through the photo gallery, and it's got all these really kind of fancy ones, and a lot of them still in the boxes and stuff. And my comment back to my friend was, yeah, these used to be like really, really inexpensive. I think they're still relatively inexpensive because they're just stopwatches. You can't really wear them, and they don't ultimately tell time in a way that a watch would. So I think, if you go on eBay, these are still actually fairly inexpensive compared to some of their, brand counterparts. But I remember back in college, I used to buy these things and just kind of work on them just because they were fun and they were cheap. And I think my dad gave me one that he used back in college, and it was maybe the first watch that I ever actually took apart. Now it was just like a 7 jewel. I still have it in pieces. It was the first watch I ever took apart, and it was also the first watch that I never put back together because I get in way over my head. And but I still have the box of parts with the assumption that someday I'll put it back together, because I don't think I actually broke anything. But I remember taking these apart and just buying them for $5-10 a piece back in college. And I think they've since gone up in price, but they represent kind of a cool, cool aesthetic, right? They can have, very kind of automotive or sports related. And I thought this was kind of a cool collection. And I think ultimately it went for 16 grand. It sold for $16,000, this collection. So not too shabby. I think it was probably primarily the Hoyer dash timers that represented the bulk of the price, because I think these have gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, they're quite valuable. Well over $1,000 just for a single one, and well over 2,000 for that double one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one actually has a clock on it too. So both of them, or I guess there's another clock over here. So I've seen recently a couple of guys mount these, to the actual dashes in their classic cars, and it becomes a fancy accessory for your fancy old Land Rover or whatever. But so I thought that was kind of cool, and I guess I aspire to own one of those dash timers at some point. But the one of the things that I have that's kind of along those lines, a few years ago, a buddy of mine was cleaning out his office. They were moving offices, and he found it just in a drawer. I think the instructions were clean out the office. Anything you find, you can have. And in a drawer, he found a Lejour stopwatch, and still has the price tag on it, and the original box and the original case in the box, and in it was a little Lejour stopwatch, and it's nice. It's got an enamel dial, and it's just 7 jewels. The back, it just has a little compression back on it. It's a very very simple movement. It doesn't work. I don't think I've ever, it's probably, it's wound tight, and I've never really done anything with it. I've never released it and tried to get it going. And actually the little reset button is actually kind of comes out. It needs to be pressed kind of back in place. But other than that, it looks like brand new. It almost looks like this person bought it and it just never worked for them, or the button came out and they just put it in the drawer and left it. But it's one of those cool things that I don't have really any practical use for, but as a horological object, it's kind of a cool thing to just sort of keep around. And the balance moves, the balance is free and stuff. So
servicing them isn't too tough, and you can find it on YouTube. And I've actually got some book on servicing these, that, or watch servicing in general, done by a British chap, and it has servicing those movements, which are fairly standard across the various manufacturers. Not all of them, but a lot of them are the same. And I hear you have a box of spare parts.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think I remember pulling the mainspring out as one of the first things, pulling the mainspring out of the barrel and seeing what happened, right? As like an 18-year-old or something, and being like, oh God. And that was the end. That was the end. But yeah, I've got a couple other chronographs and stuff. I think you guys have seen a lot of the stuff that I have, but that was maybe one I hadn't shared, and it's on my list of things to get going, just as kind of like a fun thing to have around. I don't know that I have any other like stopwatches. I mean, maybe my Casio, right? That's the only other stopwatch I probably own. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool thing that my friend sent me, and I don't know. I'll let other people go, and then we can talk
Hey,
about
Sean,
chronographs later.
I have an interesting follow on, and it's probably going to be hard to see, but this is Cabot Watch Company, CWC's version of that same Hoyer, right?
Oh,
they made
nice.
movements for a lot of people. And this actually was in British military service. It's marked on the side of it here. And these were in Harrier jump jets. Got a picture somewhere of showing it on the instrument panel, but they use these kind of in a lot of different ways. And I thought this was interesting. This one I've been inside of it a couple of times but it's finally running mostly. What's interesting about it, it's the exact same one, right, that was on those dashes, but I like it because of the military history. And what was interesting is a lot of these have come onto the secondary market because British Ministry of Defense has to put stuff up for auction, and they turn it out. This went to some sort of scientific and instrument lab in Britain somewhere. And then I found it through a local contact I have in the UK. So it's kind of an interesting aside. And if you folks will indulge me for just a second, let me turn on my virtual background, which I have to use for work. But here's another. This is a Minerva from probably the 30s. It's a mono pusher, and it's a beast of a watch, but it is so fun to wear on your wrist. And so the idea of taking some of these things and them having a new life, I bought this at auction fairly recently. I'm not sure I would have chosen this particular case, but the dial is of good quality, and it's really kind of interesting to think about. Minerva as a company, although they're now part of Mont Blanc and do that work, were just like Hoyer and some others were known for their timing instruments, their chronometers, their chronographs. But I like the one button kind of these. And apparently, at least some of these had some military use where they were useful for a pilot that needed to put it on their wrist and be able to activate it, which is kind of cool. And one other thing, if I could show off for a second, let me see if I have any luck with my screen sharing. I had an opportunity to acquire kind of an interesting piece. This is a Type 20. I bought it from this guy in France. It was wonderful. We had the whole conversation back and forth in French on WhatsApp. Me with my meager French skills and a lot of Google help. But what I love about it, it's such a fascinating piece of history, is that it's a beautiful looking watch, is really kind of gorgeous. But the thing I like about it, which you can see up here in the corner, is the whole kind of all the service dates are marked on there. So you can see when it was put into service in 1954. And the last service date was in the mid 80s. So it did quite a bit of service for the French Air Force, but I thought it's another interesting example of where chronographs and this whole sort of, one of the reasons I like them is I like the idea of the chronograph as an instrument, and necessarily an instrument for doing certain kinds of functions, maybe not so much anymore. Probably your Casio is a lot better qualified these days than some of these would be, but they make for interesting work. And this has become fairly recent acquisitions, become one of my favorite watches.
Something Sean, since you're into this automobile stuff, a member in my chapter in Nashville used to be into road rally stuff. And back in those days, they had to make calculations in the car during the race or whatever. And for whatever reason, there was a rule that they were not allowed to use the cheap electronic calculators that were available. And so they used these, which is the Curta Calculator, which has a fabulous story as far as the invention of it and so on. But this is the thing that they carried with them in the car to be able to figure out what was going on during the course of the rally. So I bought this one from the lady who had it. Her husband had died, and he had been a surveyor in Montana, I believe. And for years and years and years, he had carried this with him when he went out on surveying trips to make all his calculations, which was long before the early HP electronic calculators and so on. So you could do, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division on this to, like, I think this one is good to like 13 digits or something like that. So that's what he used it for. And they're, of course, outmoded now because of electronic calculators, but this was the go-to device for people who had to calculate stuff on the fly, so to speak.
Yeah, I can imagine hiking around with that thing and just cursing it every time you got out, and carrying a brick with you, basically, just to make sure.
Yeah. Well, actually, the carrying case is waterproof, and it's oddly enough has a left-handed thread. Why that is, I have no idea, but you have to turn it the wrong way to get the case to open and shut. But there's also a leather case for it as well. And they would wear these, literally wear them on their belts. Like, people like Tim and I used to wear slide rules back in our college days.
I wore my HP 35 calculator on my belt when I was a freshman in college. I was so proud of that thing. Those Curtas are very collectible as well, and quite valuable because they're complicated mechanical items and beautiful objects.
Yeah, I am told by somebody who knows, they said, do not ever, ever, ever take a Curta apart unless you know exactly what you're doing. Because apparently there's a whole bunch of parts that look almost identical that aren't.
I've seen one of those recently, and I cannot recall where it was. It might have been, one of our principals at the firm that still did everything by hand. He might have had one on his desk. Maybe like he was cleaning out his desk. He retired recently. Maybe he had one of those. That might have been where I saw it. But that was definitely the first time that I had ever seen anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could proceed with, I don't have a lot of stuff, but I've got a couple things that maybe I could show. Let's see here. All right. So I trust everybody can see this. This is a Glycine that I bought a number of years ago, and it's really odd because I have gotten more compliments on this watch when I wear it than any other watch I've ever had. It is a little unusual having that sort of cushion shape, but as I say, it's a nice watch. Fellow watchmaker I sent it to for service told me it was a delight to work on. The innards are here, and he was very happy to work on it. And so it's been a nice watch to have. The other one that I wanted to show was this little Milan stopwatch. It's just a very simple stopwatch, start, stop, reset. But that full scale is 1 minute. So those markings are 1/100th of a minute, or if you will, decimal seconds. And if you're doing any kind of scientific work, why decimal seconds is really nice to have, because it saves you a lot of math that you otherwise would have to employ the Curta to straighten out. So anyway, those are all the things that I brought today.
John, I was going to ask, did the Minerva that you had in the wristwatch case, was that an aftermarket case that just a Minerva stopwatch was kind of put into?
Yeah, apparently from what I'm happy to share some more with you offline. This was probably repainted dial, and to get back to our last month's topic. Get rid of some of the luminescent material there. And then it was, I guess you could find these cases fairly regularly. The weird thing about it, I don't know that you can see this, but it doesn't exactly, even though I've got big wrist, it kind of is weird. Mm-hmm. And it was on this crazy band that I had before it that it would actually sit up. It was like floating almost above your wrist. I think it probably worked good on a bun strap or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an aftermarket case as far as I know.
Nice. Tim, do you know what kind of movement was in that Glycine? Was that like a Landerin or something? Is it?
I don't. I couldn't tell you.
Okay. It looked nice.
Yeah. I'm thinking I might want to go next year. Let me see what I got, because I got some things that I think I dropped, but I think I picked it all up. All right, so on kind of the other end of the spectrum, everyone has all sorts of nice things. I've got something which is not quite on the same level. This is a little Ingram stopwatch. See if I can get it to focus there. It's basically a little pocket watch, press fit back, and to start it, you pull that switch up, and that basically has a little spring which grabs the balance wheel. To reset the hand, there's no reset button. There's a crown that you spin to reset it back to 0, very similar to a pocket watch. It's basically a pocket watch movement on the inside. Pretty common little kind of Ingram West clocks, except with that central seconds mechanism. They're actually kind of unusual. I certainly wasn't able to find any on eBay. It's not like I looked that hard, but it's a cool little thing I picked up. I got a box of watch parts. There were a handful of pocket watches, and this was one of them. So I cleaned it up as best I could. It's riveted together, so I didn't take it apart, but I cleaned it up and lubricated it somewhat excessively, and now it works slightly slowly, but it's better than the not working condition that it was in when I got it. Now, speaking of decimal seconds, I have this watch, which a lot of people think is very ugly. I like it. I actually got this watch from Mexico. It's a Continental chronograph. I think it's called the X1911A. This is based on, I think, an EB40 or an EB40, 8840 or an 8845. The cool thing about this is, hi Tim, it has reversed digits or reversed buttons, and you have start, stop, reset, but you can also pause and fly back. All of that is achieved through a little one joule movement. This is the kind of movement that actually the Sears chronographs had inside of them. It's a fiberglass and ABS case. To take out the movement, you have to forcefully pull off the crown and stick your blowers in there and pop off the crystal, build up some air pressure in there. It's a fun watch to own. I paid about $180 for it, so it was a little expensive for me, but it actually wasn't a terrible price considering that I've only seen 2 others like it. One was on someone's, I think it was like Willie's Watch World, I don't remember exactly, and the other one was on like a Thai ripoff version of eBay. So they are a relatively rare watch, and it's a fun watch to own. I've got it on this kind of weird little strap that I developed. You adjust it with this sliding loop here. It's actually pretty cool. I might make some and sell them eventually when our pandemic situation kind of clears up. In terms of stopwatches, I have a little 7 joule Yugam, always a classic. I got this watch actually at the Brass Armadillo from that one watch case with all the pocket watches in it. I don't remember the exact name of the guy who sold it, but cool thing about it is it's monopusher with 10th seconds, and that's actually a little seconds hand. It's a 3-part seconds hand. As you can see, it's only showing a third of the dial there. And it's got a nice setback motion, minutes, seconds. It's got 60 minutes as opposed to many others which have 30. This is really fantastic just for timing things. I used to carry it around a lot, and then I wasn't carrying it at one point, but I was carrying like a cheap little Chinese pocket watch that I bought, and I ended up falling because I'm a clumsy idiot, and I broke the crystal. So I decided that I shouldn't be wearing this as much as I did, because I really like it. I think it's a cool little watch. Press on back. I have worked on it somewhat, not extensively, but it didn't really need work. It was working fine when I got it, and it actually keeps pretty decent time as well. Back to chronographs. I've got just a little 17 jewel chronograph Swissy. This was in some parts that I got from eBay, and I slowly rebuilt it. I have another movement. It's not wanting to focus there. I have another movement that I kind of cannibalized to get it running. It's not running again. I need to clean it up, and I haven't got the chance because I don't have a case for it. But it's a cool little watch. I need to loom the hands as well. But yeah, eventually I will have a case for it, and I will probably enjoy wearing it quite a lot. Now, I also have this little timer. I was showing this to the Tims, and this is, I think, a little military Elgin timer. It's got column wheel movement. The column wheel module is added on. I don't have a case or a dial for it, but I think it is military. I also have a box of parts. There's a couple more movements in there that I cannibalized to get this one at the very least put together. So, I mean, if anyone interested in buying it, I'm interested in selling, you do get the box as well. And let's see, what else do I have?
And with the proceeds, we need to get you to buy a cheap thrift store webcam so that we can actually see the stuff you're showing in focus.
Yeah. I'll be sure to get one of those. And finally, I have classic. I think you all have seen this maybe a few times, but that's upside down. Croton computer, 1969, I believe is the year on this. Has a Valjoule 7733 in it. Yep, I was right side up the first time. It's actually got a Cossier movement, so it's similar to a column wheel, but it actuates, or it's similar to a cam lever, but it actuates like a column wheel movement. I know that Juan was looking at it. He was interested in buying it, and he thought it had a column wheel in it. In fact, it doesn't. It's got kind of a cool little cushion case on there. It isn't in the best of shape. This was the cheapest one that I could find. I think it was around $250. And I've had this watch for a couple of years. I really have been enjoying it. I haven't been wearing it as much because I've kind of got other watches that I've been wearing, but it's a cool little watch. It keeps decent time, although I have noticed that when you start the chronograph, that accuracy does drop off significantly. When I got it, the hairspring was broken, so I shoved a little Belova pin in there, shortened the hairspring, and then brought the regulator down as close as it could go. I've been looking around trying to find another hairspring for it, and I'm sure I could find one, but right now this works enough for me. I don't particularly care about the watches that I fix for myself being that accurate. Obviously, when I fix people's things, I try to regulate them as best as I can, but as far as my watches, I'm not, within 5 or 6 minutes, forwards or backwards is fine with me. Plus, I switch my watches out enough that I'm either wearing something fast or I'm wearing something slow. So I just sort of calculate the difference depending on what I have on my wrist.
When I wear my chronographs, like my Breitling or my Speedmaster and stuff, I just let the chronograph hand run. Do other people do that, or does everyone keep it zeroed out and just let the running seconds run? I feel like I'm
Nah, you're not alone. I mean, I do it. I like
Yeah.
seeing the motion sometimes, and it's kind of like a faux second hand or something. And other times I feel like, oh, I should save the chronograph for something else. It's like, I'm just doing it for my own enjoyment anyway. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. Probably runs
I
down
leave it
fast.
running sometimes on the Glycine because the way the Glycine is set up, when the second hand is zeroed out, it falls right in the middle of the date window. It's one thing I don't like about it. It actually obscures the date window, so I can leave it running, and then that's less likely to do that. But that's the one design flaw, I think, in that particular watch.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I always feel a little bit bad, like I'm putting undue wear on things, but it's a watch. It's meant to kind of run. So
I posed the question on the NAWCC message board just the other day, because you see watches that are stamped certified Swiss chronometer that have chronograph functions. And so I posed the question on a message board. I said, wouldn't using the chronograph negatively impact the timekeeping? And only a couple people responded, and they said, yeah, probably. Probably would. So
yeah, well, I know that I tend to keep mine zeroed out, mostly because I don't have that many chronographs, and it's kind of cool to look down and see that second hand kind of sitting there at zero and kind of staying still. Usually the watches that are broken that I own, the second hand isn't at zero. So it's kind of a cool thing for me to look at least.
Yeah, on the Speedmaster, the loom plot on the chronograph seconds hand like obscures the omega symbol. It's like it lines up with it. So I feel like I just let it run. It's a good looking second hand too. What you got, Dan?
I have a few I could show. Am I muted? No. I tried to, my collection started with chronographs, so I've got dozens, but I tried to pull out a few that were like a little different that might be interesting. Let's see if I can share. So one, this is an interesting comment Sean brought up about whether or not to let like your the sweep hand run. I was noticing I've got a few chronographs where if you don't let the sweep hand run, you don't have any second hand because there is no running second hand. Like this guy is 1964 Seiko. These were, I think I might have shown this before. These were released for the Tokyo Olympics, and it's a monopusher, and you can see there is no sweep hand, no totalizer registers or accumulators either. It's just like a watch with a pusher, and so if you start it, you get the sweep hand going, but otherwise you have no running second hand. So that one's kind of different. And here's another, it's probably going to be a little hard to see, that doesn't have any registers. This is a Medo multi-center chrono. And so these were from the 50s and advertised as chronographs that you could wear like a dress watch. You know, they were kind of like, oh, these aren't busy like a chronograph. They're just like a dress watch. And so it does have a minute accumulator, but it's center mounted. So that red hand counts the minutes, and then there's that sort of purple hand that's sweeping, and otherwise it's just you stop it and reset it. I don't know. normally. So both hands reset now, they're right on top of each other. You can really not see them very well. Hello, yeah. So now you can see the minute hand, and the radium has gotten really dark in this. That's why in this lighting you're not able to see the hour and minute hands very well. Would have originally had kind of more normal colored loom, but this is kind of a cool watch, also kind of different sort of chronograph. It's in a Taubert case, and it's got these interesting fluted pushers. Attractive watch. So both of those, if you don't run the chronograph, you got no second hand. You can't tell seconds at all.
I was just realizing that exact same thing, Dan.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, both my Octavia and my
your Octavia. That's right. I was thinking that's another example. There's no running second hand. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Seiko, the 6139, the automatic Seiko chronograph, the Pogue.
Yeah.
It's just got the one elapsed 30-minute subdial, and then
So maybe that's why you like to write. You like to let your chronographs run.
I didn't even think about it. I was like, "Yep, Dan is
yeah.
oh my god."
Here's another mono pusher, and I guess we were looking at that Auracost Type 20. This is military issue, also British military issue, Lamania 15 caliber 15 movement. Oh, I should have pulled off this strap, but this is they made I don't know, I think we might have talked about this one before too. Identical for the Navy and for the Air Force. This is for the Air Force, and that 63 is the issue year. So for me, this is a birth year watch. It's kind of not really big on these birth year things, but if you're going to have birth year, I think it's nice to have it like written right on the case like that, you know. So if you can have like an issue date, then you really know it's your birth year. So this is another mono pusher, and I don't think I wound it, but you know, with these mono pushers, it's just, you know, start, stop, reset, all on the same button, and the Seiko was the same. So that's a Royal Air Force Mania from 63. And so this is kind of a curiosity. It's an Eberhard. So this will fool you actually, because it looks like it's a normal chronograph. I should have moved the hands so you can see better. It looks like it's a normal, you know, 2-pusher chronograph, but that bottom pusher is not a pusher. It's just a dummy. So this is actually a mono pusher. So you start it with the upper button, stop it, and reset it. It operates just like a regular mono pusher. That bottom pusher is not a pusher, it slides. So I don't know if you can see, but if I slide it either down or up, I can't remember. Up, if I slide it up, it puts a brake on the sweep hand. So the sweep hand stopped. And if I slide it back down again, it'll start again. So that bottom, it's got these nice square, you know, quote unquote pushers or rectangular pushers, but the bottom one isn't a pusher. It's just like this weird brake. And it's a modified value of some type. So these Eberhards, I guess this one has a lot of patina on the dial, but one thing that is kind of nice about them, if you like large watches, these are quite large. These are like 39, 40 millimeters, you know, and going back to, you know, the 40s and 50s, they just, for whatever reason, made them quite large always. So it's an extra fort is the model, Eberhard.
Is that a solid gold case?
Yeah, it's an 18 karat pink gold case, this one.
Wow, nice. Nice.
What else? So this one is just a normal chronograph, but it's just a kind of, I guess we haven't really talked about scales. I should have probably been talking about scales a little bit more. Like on that Eberhard, you know, you can see the tachymeter scale, and that one just so a lot of times with chronographs, as you know, there's this the tachy scale, which allows you to time speed at which you're traveling. You start and you use like a marked mile or marked kilometer, and then you start and stop at the beginning and end, and then wherever it ends up, that's your speed that you're going. That's the tachy scale. And then I don't know if I must have one here with a telemeter scale, I would think. Oh yeah, so this guy has a telemeter scale. So this has both. You can see on the outer edge, this is a Longines 13ZN. On the outer edges, the tachy scale is a little hard to read, but that outer, that still goes to 1,000. And the next one in is a telemeter scale, and that's to time the speed of sound. So it's like the distance of a artillery or thunderstorm or something. So if you see an artillery flash and you start it, then when you stop it, that will tell you the distance, in this case in kilometers, to the artillery flash. So that's the telemeter scale. But there are other things that chronographs were used to time also. So this one is a doctor's watch. It's in Spanish. It's a Universal Geneve Medico Compax. So it's just like a Unicompax, but instead of having a telemeter or tachy scale, you can see up on that upper left, it says graduado para 15 pulsaciones. So that means you start the timer and you count 15 pulse. You're taking somebody's pulse and you count to 15, and then you stop it, and it tells you what that person's heart rate is. Basically just multiplies it by 4, I guess. So those are, you'll see these kind of heart rate also as another thing that sometimes is sort of a specialty watch for people in the medical profession. So that's a Universal Geneve Medico Compax with the pulse rate dial. Otherwise, it's just the dial. Otherwise, it's exactly the same reference as you'll see these for regular Unicompax versions as well. These have all been hand wound. I showed this already, this Longines, but the reason I pulled this one out is because this one has a slightly different feature also. This is has a flyback feature. So everything I've shown so far you go through a cycle, you go through the start, stop, reset cycle when you're using the chronograph, but flyback feature allows you to do the reset without stopping. So like if I start the sweep hand on this, I can stop it and start it again, or stop it and reset it just like you're used to. But the flyback allows you to reset it on the fly. So I can have it running, and then I can press the bottom and it will reset it and keep going. So it kind of allows you to do like split times really quick. I mean, not really, you need a double chronograph to really do split times, but it's just a little added feature that some of these have. I think probably John's Arcos is a flyback too, because most of those Type 20s, if not maybe all the Type 20s, had the flyback, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
A lot of times they were like modified Valjoux 22 or something like that had that feature. And I just got one more pulled out. This was only one that's an automatic. So as most of you probably know, there was a big arms race in the late 60s with 3 different either manufacturers or consortia of manufacturers trying to make the first automatic, fully automatic chronograph. And I think different people claim to be the first based on different metrics. Like some say, well, we were the first to actually make it. But Zenith claims to be the first to like kind of put it in a like mass market product. So a lot of times people say Zenith and they call it El Primero, which is saying they're the first to do it right in the name. And this is one of the first batch. So they, in 69 and 70, they released 3 different references. They're El Primero in this same kind of tonneau case with 3 different, well, 2 of them had this tonneau case and the third had a just a more conventional round case. And they released a few thousand each in like 69 and 70. So this is one of that first batch, just a regular chronograph, but fully automatic. And these El Primero movements are virtually unchanged. I mean, they're still being used in almost the same form with just sort of minor tweaks to this day. They've really stood the test of time. The others were quite good too. I mean, the caliber 11, which became the caliber 12, Sean was talking about his Atavia, and also the Seiko. I guess you got 2 of those really early ones, Sean.
Yeah, I was just laughing. I love that particular El Primero. That's the one that's missing from my collection. I aspire to own all 3 of the
first ones.
Yeah, and I was just taking a photo. I got them out because I was looking at them, but I have the Atavia, which has I think this one actually has a caliber 12 in it, but yeah, the caliber 11, which was a joint venture between Hoyer, Hamilton, and Buren.
Yeah,
they all had like 3 pieces of the puzzle and they all ganged up together. And then Seiko with the 6139 and then the El Primero. Yeah, I'd love to. And I love this particular case. I think this one is like so emblematic of the time too, right? It's just like a beautiful, like late 60s, early 70s design aesthetic. This, what do they call it? Like the A286 or something?
It's A385. So there were 3. There were the A384, 385, 386. And the 384, 385 were in this case. The 384 had sort of the black with, white with black subdials. And the 386 is the one that has just skyrocketed in price. It's the round case with the 3 different color subdials, like gray, blue, light blue.
Yep.
And that one is just like 4 or 5 times the price.
Oh wow! Okay.
Of this. So these are the sort of this khaki dial are the most affordable of those 3, and it's interesting because you'll see, it's not like a very dramatic dial. It's just sort of like brown beige, but it's kind of interesting. It has like a fade to it. It's lighter and it kind of gets darker as it goes out. And if you look at enough of them, you actually see they vary quite a bit. Like some are more green, some are more brown. I think they've just sort of changed different ways over the, they just age differently.
And is that what they sometimes call a fume or smoked dial? Is that?
I mean, that does make sense that, that that sort of gradation and color
Right.
going outwards.
Tobacco smoke, because I think they reissued one recently in conjunction with the cigar company, trying to emulate what had been their classic, the way the classic dial aged.
There've been a lot of these re-released.
Yeah, I feel like
Zenith has been doing a lot of reissues.
Yeah, I feel like I'll just go for one of the newer ones instead of trying to hunt one of these. Although I'd love to have a vintage one. The tan went with all the leisure suits, the early 70s.
Yeah,
leisure suits that everyone was wearing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one's cool. I love that. I love that watch. The El Primero. What? The El Primero had the first like integrated automatic? Is that like what they say? They were the first integrated automatic chronograph?
That's as opposed to the other ones that more had like modules?
Yeah, I think the other two are considered modules. Like the
Well,
Seiko.
I mean that could help distinguish it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Cal 11 has like the micro rotor module, and then the Seiko has like I think it's a full rotor, but it's still considered like a module on top of everything. I took some photos, but yeah, here's my.
Yeah.
There's the Octavia, and then yeah, the runnings. The one subdial is a 30-minute, and then the other one's a 12-hour, and so the second hand is the actual running second, and then the Seiko, the same thing. It's
right.
A 30-minute counter, and then the running second. So one day I'll get one of those El Primeros. My collection will be complete.
I like collecting that way too. You know, like some people like to, you know, get like multiples of the same, you know, but I think it's really fun to kind of do something horizontal like that, you know, like the there's three different versions of that first automatic. That would really be a fun horizontal to have.
Yeah, I saw a picture that somebody had released where they had just cropped all three of the ads and like put them all next to each other, you know, and like kind of a big poster. And I thought that was the impetus. It was like it's an arms race. Yeah, that's like the perfect description for it, right? Like who can get the first automatic chronograph movement in history? Yeah. Of course, I should have known you had an El Primero.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was pretty early on. I think one of the ones I felt like I really wanted to have was an El Primero in my collection.
Yeah, I kept thinking, oh, maybe I could scratch the itch by getting like one of the older Ebel watches. I think they're maybe not aesthetically as popular now, but I think they were one of the movements that had the early El Primero, like back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So like at the same time that I think the Daytonas were using them basically, right? So
yeah, until, you know, the 90s or to the late 90s, the Daytonas had when they were the automatic Daytonas had the El Primero.
Nice. Well, hey, I got to jump, guys. I've got another meeting to jump on. It was great to see everybody, and thanks for showing everything. That was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I've got to run too, but thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope
thank you very much.
I was wondering if we would meet in person again soon.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. Okay. That'd be good.
We're getting close.
Yeah.
Tim, what do you think? Is Tim still there?
No, he's off. He had to go to an HOA meeting.
Okay.
What do you think?
Had he talked to you at all about whether we would be meeting in person maybe next time?
Nothing's been said one way or the other about that. So I have a question. Maybe one of you guys could clarify. Tonneau, cushion, tank. How would you distinguish amongst those three terms?
Oh.
Well, cushion is going to be a case shape, right? And tank is going to be like kind of a style, I guess. And what was the first one? Tolo?
Chrono.
Tonneau.
I
Tonneau.
I think of Tourneau as being, or like, yeah, Tonneau. No, you're right. I feel like the Zenith has a Tonneau case. Cushion is more square, but with rounded faces to the square. Like your Glycine is probably a cushion, and then a tank I feel like is usually just rectangular or just square, right?
Yeah, I was definitely going to say that the tank to me is probably a little bit easier to distinguish from the other two because it's like, yeah, usually rectangular. But I don't have a very good, I don't think I have a really distinct way to make a, to say what the difference between tonneau and cushion is.
I feel like the tonneau is usually half cushion, half tank, right? Like two sides are flat and two sides are rounded. But that's good question. I don't know. I've never seen it, formally distinguished.
There was an article I could have sworn I saw within the last 6 months or something on this, Tim, that went into trying to help people explain, and because sometimes the same term is used for, kind of a different, or maybe tonneau was in a general term, but cushion was a better example. I don't know. I'll have to look around, see if I can find it, if so I can share it out.
Okay. We have some folks who haven't shared with us, Terry, Rhett, and the famous Rex Poggenpole. We see his room, we don't see Rex.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know all those people were on.
Well, I just had a quick announcement. Our regional is on. Dave Fornoff and I are finalizing plans. It's an easy date to remember. It's going to be at the Boulder County Fairgrounds in Longmont, and we'll have more details. And it's the last day of July and the first day of August, a Saturday and Sunday. I just had a voicemail today from our national rep, who will be Jim Price. So I've got to get back to him with some more details. And those who are local, we hope to see you then. You can get info on the Chapter 21 website. We did turn in an ad this week that'll be printed out in the Mart also. So that's all I have.
Good. Thanks, Terry. Okay, so Rhett, got any chronographs or stopwatches?
Well, I planned to be at home, so I had a couple out at home, and then I couldn't make it home for lunch. So the only thing I have is what I'm wearing today. I don't know if it'll show up here. It's a new Hamilton. Using it's kind of a recreation of I believe the caliber 11 chronomatic with the blue dial, and this one's termed the intramatic. It's an automatic movement versus the manual movements that some of them had, just like the chronomatic had. I think it's based off of Valjoux 7750 or 7753 or something like that movement. I tell people I normally collect pocket watches, and I wear wristwatches, but I bought this one, and I've had a newer Speedmaster for quite a while, and I have to admit that I'm starting to get they're starting to kind of grow on me, and I'm getting the itch to maybe start looking at some of the vintage chronographs. The only thing that probably holds me back is when I look at the prices. The ones I like bring the Hoyers, the early Speedmasters and stuff. They've definitely gotten pretty popular the last couple of years or so. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to jump in yet at that, but I thought I'd share this one just because it is kind of a recreation of a vintage watch.
Okay.
That's about all I have.
Calling Rex. Rex, are you with us? We've been looking at Rex's room there for 20. There he is, finally. What do you got for us today, Rex?
Sorry, guys. I'm near Fort Worth, Texas, at a mini reunion with a couple of high school classmates. We all celebrated 80th birthdays in the last year, and I just thought I would interrupt making a little bit of lunch here to see what you guys had. So I appreciate the nice pieces that I saw. Very nice. You ought to be proud of them. I have about probably 75 chronographs, and I'm not sure I've only got but a very few that are in the quality of the ones I just saw. So great to see them. Thank you.
Thanks, Rex. All righty. What else we got? Looks like we don't have any other stuff to show. All right. Okay, well, then I'll tell you what I'll do since I'm in charge of shutting this thing off. I will shut it off, and we'll hope to see you next time. As usual, Tim will edit the tape or edit the recording and post it on the YouTube channel, and so you can look back. So anyway, great to see everyone, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. So bye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.